Hello, everybody. This is Going Viral. It's the 9th of February, and you're watching Going Viral. Tonight's panel will consist of Dennis Goldstein, who's in New Jersey, and Alex Stavropoulos, who's in New York. You're not in the Bronx, are you, Alex? You're in Manhattan. Right, and Mike Jankowitz. And where are you, Mike? In the Bronx or Brooklyn?
I'm all over the place. No,
He's all over
Queens.
the place. Oh,
I'm in
Queens.
New York.
Okay. And Ken Aaron, and I'm a little bit on the borderline of New York called Los Angeles. There's a lot of expats from New York and Los Angeles, too. So let's start the show, and we're going to go right to Alex Stavropoulos. You got it, Alex.
Okay. Yeah, and we're going to go right to Al Jazeera and a piece they have about a very interesting court case that was just decided in Ecuador that has big implications for, climate.
Remember to forward the sound. Forward the sound.
Sharing. Okay.
This is the ancestral territory of the Icofan community of Sinangue at the entrance of the Amazon basin in Ecuador. For generations, this indigenous community has lived off of what the rainforest provides, from food to medicine and boats. But when they discovered that their territory was being invaded by gold mining projects all along their river, the isolated community took action. Men and women.
We also have the right to protect, care for and patrol our territory, to identify the most impacted areas, to tell the state enough contamination, enough of putting our territories in danger.
But their indigenous patrols weren't enough.
We began going to the capital, to the mining ministry, to see what was happening, and we discovered that the government had approved 52 mining concessions for 25 years. There was never any consultation, nothing.
With the legal assistance of the NGO Amazon Frontlines, the community brought a lawsuit against Ecuador's government. Al Jazeera was visiting the community when they received the Supreme Court verdict.
You've won, you've won.
The unprecedented ruling obliges the state to consult communities over oil and mining projects that impact their land and to seek their consent. It applies not just to this indigenous community, but to all those all over the country, many of whom suffer massive environmental damage from the oil industry, the country's largest. The ruling is a blow to the government's ambitious plans to double oil production and significantly expand mining, most of which take place in the Amazon.
Now we can see this movement spreading across Ecuador and spreading across the Amazon, because what's happening in Ecuador is actually happening all over the Amazon.
Ecuador's Mining Association insists that responsible mining is imperative for the country's development.
This is an indispensable industry for human beings and also for our economic welfare. We don't oppose consulting communities, but we oppose being discriminated.
The tiny Sinangue community has won a huge battle, but it may not necessarily have the last word, since the court ruling does leave room for exceptions in the name of overriding national interests. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera.
Okay, Alex, I muted you because I heard a cough.
August 18th.
Yeah. No, yeah, so I was saying, the poor mining companies and oil companies, why doesn't someone stand up for ExxonMobil or I don't know? Well, there are some big, not just American but Canadian companies, but they didn't say which particular company, but probably some multinational. That's what they usually are. Of course, there are European multinational mining companies too.
So why am I seeing Amy Goodman here?
Oh, because it jumped to the next clip already.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, obviously, the case has very interesting implications for the climate issues, environment. If this idea that, you will be required in, like, say, then not just Ecuador, but, in Brazil and, all the countries of well, not just Latin America, but the world. What if all of them have to get permission essentially from the local indigenous communities? A lot of these projects are going to get stopped, which is of course what we need to do to keep the, plant. We need to basically leave all the, not just the oil, but all of the gold and other, a lot of the gold, a lot of the lithium and everything else in the ground, in order to stop runaway climate change. So I think this is a very positive development. Again, if we can only hope that it spreads as fast and as quickly as possible.
Let me just do a follow-up question. Well, this is the actual Supreme Court in Ecuador.
In Ecuador, yeah.
So there's nobody
no
above
higher
them.
Court. There's nobody to. This is this is like if our Supreme Court, it's the law of the land now. That and future projects, they will have to consult the communities where they're going to take place if they're want to extract whatever mineral or oil or whatever else.
But you're not sure what company it is.
No, they don't mention. So you have to. I mean, again, there are so many projects in Ecuador that you would need some digging to find out. I just saw this today, so I don't have the time to. If I wanted to look it up, but we can suspect it's some kind of multinational, probably. Again, it could be Canadian, could be American, could be European, who knows, or even could be Chinese.
It can't be Canadian, Alex.
Oh no, they're
anything
Canadian.
bad, it can't be Canadian. That's all.
Yes, it certainly can. Canadians participated in the destruction of East Timor. They were major.
Okay, I
have the genocide of East Timor in the 80s
all I
and
can
90s.
say is no. I think that the Canadians participated. They did it in a totally moral and ethical way.
Come on, Mike. Now you're just being, a booster for your.
He's just kidding. Take a sense
The
of
word
humor.
Canada translates into "we can do no wrong." You just don't understand the background of it.
Wonderful people with free fruit. Well, hold on a minute. I got some relevant information for you, gentlemen. This is right off the internet. I guess it's Wikipedia, a reliable source. The current oil sector organization in Ecuador is dominated by Petroecuador, the national oil company, which controls most of Ecuador's crude oil production. The second largest oil country is Amazonas, also state-owned, slated to be fully merged and absorbed by Ecuador.
And
it's not Chevron, Mobil, or Exxon.
It used to be, but Chevron already Chevron already has a $9 billion judgment.
I know, but that was then.
Them.
This is now.
Well, they will, these Latin American, these national oil companies, they often, they don't always have all the equipment and skills. So they often partner with, Exxon or whoever the Chinese too, or the Russians. But again, this is not oil. This is mining. This was gold mining, Ken. So
other mining besides oil.
It was gold. They said it was.
Well, these
were gold mines. So
let me just give
one
other
number of
point of information here.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, they may be state-owned companies, but when it comes to major corporations, Alex, you're thinking too small when you say, "Oh, it's American or Canadian companies." First of all, it's predominantly American companies and a few Canadian companies, but they're not American or Canadian companies.
Right,
we're talking about multinational companies. Their loyalty is not to their country.
Well, any company's loyalty is
to their stockholders.
Yeah, of course.
And usually to.
They have nobody has loyalty to a country when it comes to corporation anymore, as they've shown that time and time again.
Right. So, so the fact is that it has to do with profit.
Yeah.
And I think this is a decided victory in Ecuador.
Yes.
Whether or not it translates into any other country is something else, and also it's got to be enforced.
Right. Of course.
That's another problem. I mean, this is a decision.
But it is an good example that could be replicated. by other countries.
Well, it sets a good example, but the enforcement of it is what I'm.
Oh, sure, of course, yeah. But we haven't heard Dennis.
That depends on the wait. I know we haven't heard Dennis, but I haven't finished my sentence. No, the enforcement of it will depend upon the government in power, and how much influence the corporations have with that. And remember also, as we know with corporations and governments, a ruling could be put in, and there's always a way, as was pointed out in your clip. There are many ways to skirt the law or get around it. So the first part of the battle has been won, but the battle isn't over.
Thank you, Michael. Let's go. Dennis, come on. We're waiting for you. Unmute. It's like a new series we have here because we can see you. Unmute, Dennis. Unmute. Come on up. I'm gonna keep you featured until you start to talk. Come on. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I agree with everybody. These mining companies, like the oil companies, like the extractive industries, have to be battled, and they're usually connected to the multinationals, and they have to be controlled. So that's our job, to do that for the future. And we have to, I mean, this is, let me just say this is a fight for the future of the planet and humanity. That's what we're involved in. And either we're going to organize to gain power, or we're going to lose the fight. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks. And remove the pin. Hey, Alex, you ready to go with Amy?
Yeah, but not the clip. That'll again just jump to the next clip, which I guess was hers. But we have another good piece of news from Mexico, where there just was good news for the unions in Mexico, which has again implications. Well, it has implications here in the U.S. because basically,
let's go to it. Let's go to it.
Yeah.
Then we'll analyze
We'll
it.
talk. Okay. Yeah. Let's do that.
In a historic victory for international
you can see how
labor
happy
rights,
she is.
thousands of Mexican workers at the General
But I
Motors
agree with her
plant
on
in
this
Mexico have voted in a landslide to form an independent union. The union election at the GM plant in the city of Silao in Guanajuato was the first since the implementation of new labor reforms in Mexico written into the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. Many powerful unions in Mexico with ties to elite politicians and business people had for years gone behind workers' backs to make deals with multinational corporations to keep workers' pay low and deny them other benefits. This is Maria Alejandra Morales Reynosa, the Secretary General of the Independent Union of Workers in the automotive industry. Ahead of the vote, she and the union were targeted with threats.
Let's hope those other unions change and work for the actual workers, so they, unions, don't only look out for their own interests. A union has to represent the workers, and I believe we are going to start by making that much-needed change. We still don't know who sent threatening messages. They were not only sent to myself, but to all my committee present here.
GM's own reports show wages for new workers at GM's plant in Silao, who build the Chevrolet Silverado and the GMC Sierra pickups, make about $25 for a 12-hour shift. One of the GM workers, Armando Sandoval, recently spoke to Reuters about how the new union could mean higher wages for workers at the GM plant.
With the union we've had for years, they raised our wage by 14 pesos. Alongside those 14 pesos, they raised transportation, union fees, and cafeteria prices. Practically, we are breaking even year in and year out. We are hoping for many improvements.
By choosing the new independent union, GM workers in Silao have broken ties with one of Mexico's most influential labor organizations, which had held the plant's contract for 25 years. Major U.S. labor unions supported the election. AFL-CIO President Liz Schuler said, quote, "This vote represents a rejection of the past and a new era for Mexican workers' right to associate freely." General Motors says it's ready to enter negotiations with the new independent union. Under the country's reform labor law, the union has 6 months to negotiate a contract approved by a majority of the workers. For more, we go to Guanajuato in Mexico to speak with Javier Bravo, professor of history at the University of Guanajuato. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Professor. It's great to have you with us. Talk about the significance of this victory of the independent union in a GM plant in Mexico.
Thank you, Amy. Hello, everyone. Well, this victory of Cynthia's is has a very big symbolic meaning for us in Guanajuato and in Mexico, because 76% of the workers have voted for Cynthia to represent them, before the CEO and the owners of the plant. That's a huge victory that is like a lighthouse for us, for our labor movement, because for many years here in Guanajuato and in Mexico, the CTM has been controlling the labor movement. It has demobilized the labor movement in Mexico. So this victory is very important, especially because Cynthia, the new union, is like a true workers union representing workers, because CTM is led by professional, corrupt politicians, not workers. So for the first time in the existence of the plant here in Guanajuato, workers will be representing workers. That's beautiful news. There's some aesthetics in what is happening right now in Guanajuato, especially because the Secretary General of the Cynthia Union is a woman. That's another symbolic message to the people and the working class here in Guanajuato. Myself, as a faculty member of the Universidad of Guanajuato, and my colleagues from Mexico Solidarity Project are trying to support Cynthia in all the ways that are possible to us, because they have no means. I mean, the labor quotes, the union quotes were in the hands of CTM. So Cynthia was born from almost from nothing, just from the will of these rebel workers. We thank all these rebel workers for creating such an inspiring union, Amy.
And Professor Bravo, I'd like to ask you, in terms of the labor reform, most Americans are not aware that these kinds of elections would not even be happening had it not been for the labor reforms that President López Obrador passed shortly after becoming president, that insisted that more than 700,000 union contracts, workers have to be able to vote on their contracts secretly, to vote for their elected officials. What's been the impact of that labor reform that was passed in April of 2019?
Oh, well, I think the results are just in process. We are not seeing the whole picture, but now the conditions and the possibilities of free unions are very important. So they can, for the first time in our labor history in Mexico, they can create new unions independently of the will of the owners for the first time. Can you imagine? That was so that means that they can now really in real life struggle, fight for being treated as human beings, not just as objects, as means for the owner's profit, but as human beings, not as human resources like natural resources. No, they're human beings, and they have now the possibility, the legal possibility to being treated as human beings. There's a lot of possibilities, not just only to create new unions free of the owner's influence, but also they can elect the representatives without asking for permission to the patron.
Okay. So obviously this has implications for not just for labor. It's stuck on that. Not just for labor south of the border, but this, I mean, we know that a huge amount of leverage against workers here in the U.S. is that the bosses would always say, well, we can, if you don't want to take that cut in your wages or give up this concession, then we can always move our plant to Mexico instead. But if there's strong unions in Mexico and their wages are rising and they're getting more benefits down there, then obviously that ploy doesn't work anymore, unless you're going to start and with like automobiles, you can't move it would be very difficult to import GM cars from China, even with all the container ships and so on. That's just not that's not going to be profitable for them. So this, as in many industries, is going to help, again, not just Mexican workers. If this becomes a trend, it's very much going to help American workers, and it's going to help with the rising unionization here in the U.S. Places like Amazon. You're muted, Ken.
Yeah. What province was this in?
It's like Guanajuato.
Well, I mean, I know the professor was in Guadalajara.
I'll look it up. Guanajuato. Guanajuato. That's where his university, and it's that province. I'll look it up.
Okay, great. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah,
Guanajuato. Good.
Yeah.
That would be Guanajuato.
Put up the map so we can see where it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna post it right now. And there it is. Let me zoom in on it. There you go. Whoops.
Oh, so western coast. Okay. There. Okay. Yeah. Oh, not too. So west of Mexico City.
Whoops. Where is it?
Yeah.
There it is. There it is. See where my finger is there?
Yeah.
So that's the province and that's the city.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just south of Mexico City.
Right. So you can see the roads you would take to get to the U.S.
No. It's north of Mexico City.
Yeah. Well, north and west. Yeah. So it's it's not
Mexico City.
it's a few hours from Texas. So obviously it's well sited for them to transport the cars across the border.
Well, it's like in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
It depends on the roads, but they don't have to go through the mountains. They can.
Yeah.
Obviously, the car companies, the U.S. car companies, are going to locate it.
I suppose they could even, ship. If I know about the ports on the West Coast, but I suppose you could even ship to there and put it on a ship to take it up to the West Coast.
Well, most automobile manufacturer now it's a question of where it's assembled.
Oh, right.
And because the parts come from all over the world, except for Tesla. Tesla makes everything himself as much as possible. Mm-hmm. But everybody else is an aggregation of parts.
Right.
And put together in Mexico or sometimes. Now, I have to correct you on something. We've been buying Japanese cars for years.
Oh, yeah.
Way before they started to manufacture them in the States. Toyota, Mazda, Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha. and they ship them. It's not a problem.
Okay.
And
I
so,
stand corrected. Yeah.
right? You've driven them.
Well, actually, Ken, with
Yeah.
the caveat that we've been having some shipping problems lately.
Well,
yeah,
absolutely.
that too.
That's true.
The
That's
supply
currently.
chain issues. Yeah.
I'm just saying it's been like 40 years of importing vehicles from Asia.
Right. But it's also interesting. Yeah, I guess they've, they're not just like in Monterey or plants on the border. They're somewhat further south. Some of these, including American, obviously GM.
Right.
Well, Alex, let me ask a question. And before I ask the question, I'll put the reason I'm asking the question on in here is that, in the past century, we've seen situations where the unions there would be some very good union leaders who would be fighting for the union, fighting for the rights of the union workers, and these leaders would get help from different sources. They used to get help from the mob, and then some compromises were made, so you had the mob getting involved with the union, and then the union leaders themselves, because even though they still thought they were doing it for the good of the workers, would start compromising and making deals and getting corrupted themselves.
Sure.
What I'm wondering about is if this new ruling means that within that by the very makeup of the union, that it would prevent the union leaders from deviating from this original, shall we say, more altruistic idea.
Well, I think one thing that they pointed out that I think would go against that is, again, when as I think Juan said, which again I have to say also, do you see how nice his living room looks? Very colorful. Was quite jealous. But again, the union members have to vote on a contract. So obviously, that means there's no, union. It's not the union leadership that makes the contract with the business, their bosses. It's the workers themselves, have a direct, one person, one vote. So obviously that makes it more difficult for any kind of corruption. The other thing is, of course, in Mexico, the gangs are mostly associated, of course, with the drug trade. And in fact, remember at the beginning, they're talking about, the people trying to form this independent union, the committee, they were threatened, anonymously, but that could very well have been, and there's a long history of basically the drug gangs being used by different political forces to assassinate indigenous leaders, but also union leaders too, and politicians, of course. So I would tend to think that they would, I've never heard of them being, all that much involved, the gangs in the unions. Again, there may be, obviously I haven't specifically researched it or heard, 100% one way or the other, but can't think of any, again, I would, I have some good Mexican friends who are, including, again, some who are historians. So, and one guy who does Mexican history. So, I could, I'll track him down and ask him. He teaches at St. John's actually, but he does teach modern Mexican history, so he probably wouldn't know actually.
Well, actually, it depends upon what the gangs expand into. I mean, when you had the mobs in New York or something, and you had the Meyer Lansky and Ben Siegel and Charlie Luciano, and then when Arnold Rothstein formed the National Crimes, what became started the combination and the National Crime Syndicate, then they had their fingers in everything. And by the way, I should point out that even the mob guys, the Rothstein and the people under him, or some, they actually believed in the idea of the unions or something. They came from the streets also. But again,
and in some cases they would they would use the violence to
yes,
in favor of a strike, say,
right.
I mean,
Would
you
fighting-
just go watch, the Hoffa film with Danny
you can also
DeVito
see
and Jack
movies like
Nicholson, and you see some of that.
Once Upon a Time in America, et cetera, et cetera. But
Yeah,
the fact is, no, but they actually did. They actually fought the strike breakers in favor of the unions. The mob did that, but the fact is, as things get more entrenched,
they become corrupt.
and things happen, and people have their their own vested interests, and especially if it's a mob or something. So there's no saying that the gangs, with the drug gangs or something, won't decide that they're going to move up to the next level.
Sure.
And say, okay, let's start controlling the government. We can control the unions, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm asking is, are there safeguards to prevent? You mentioned one, which was any contract has to be voted on. Are there any other safeguards to prevent the union from pulling away from its membership? So
that would depend on the government, I guess. Using its police powers to keep organized crime out of the unions. That's where you would, which again, I think Lopez Obrador has strengthened. On the other hand, he hasn't directly, unlike some previous Mexican presidents, he hasn't like gone to war with the drug cartels. It kind of left them alone, but also again is undertaking reforms that are going to weaken them long term, because of course crime is connected to economics. So why would anyone go into a gang if they could do better with a legal job, essentially, and which is going to be safer, of course. So
yeah.
Oh, hey guys, that's enough for this international stuff. Let's hit the come on. Let's hit the Academy Awards.
All right, wait. Dennis might have something also.
Okay, hey Dennis.
Yeah. So Dennis,
you got something about unions? You got something against unions, Dennis?
Unless Dennis, did we put
Dennis.
him? I think.
I don't think we're going to get him.
Yeah, he might. Okay, yeah. So you want?
Let me throw this up. Come on, let me just throw this up on the Academy Awards.
Okay.
Here we go. Boom, boom.
Wait.
Boom.
Are you getting
it?
We're not getting the sound, Ken. So
sorry.
You got to do computer sound or something.
Oh, geez. I always forget to do that, and I'm always so upset when you guys don't. Now it's not letting me do that.
Chloe, let's start with Best Picture.
Okay, you got it.
Let's go right there. Is that where you want to go? All right, let's start with the ultimate category. Well, okay. So West Side Story is something that was the dark horse here in this category. I just did not think that West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's musical foray, even though he was nominated for Best Director this year, it didn't do very well at the box office. But, he is a fan, Academy Awards, they love Steven Spielberg. I also want to talk about King Richard. Coda, it's a movie that I actually just finished this morning. It's a movie about a young girl who is the only hearing child in her family. Everyone else is deaf. It's an incredible movie. It did really, really great at the film festivals.
What I think is really interesting is that typically you have these big box office smashes that get viewers really excited. They get people excited about the Oscars. The best performing movie of the last year was Spider-Man, but nobody really expected that to get a Best Picture nomination. So you're left with a lot of movies that didn't have the impact of, say, a Titanic or a Spider-Man. So I think one of the biggest contenders is Power of the Dog. Now, this is a movie from Netflix, so this would be the first Oscar for Best Picture from any streaming service. It has been killing it in early award shows. It killed it at the Golden Globes. So I think we may see the first win for a streaming service.
It is so good. It's a dark Western.
Yeah, it's really uplifting. It leaves a giant smile on your face after you see it.
Benedict Cumberbatch is really good. And fun fact, Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons, who also both star in the movie, they're actually together and they have 2 children together in real life. I do want to point something out.
Tons of laughs.
This is a big deal this morning for Will Smith. Will Smith nominated for Best Actor for his role as the father of Venus and Serena Williams, as Richard Williams in King Richard. This is his first nomination. for an Oscar in over a decade. He's been nominated twice before, once for Ali, playing Muhammad Ali, once for The Pursuit of Happiness. This could be his first time. This could be his year to win an Oscar.
Yeah, and also fun fact, in 2002, when he was up for Ali, he also went up against Denzel Washington, who has been nominated in this category for Macbeth.
I didn't know that.
But Denzel took it for Training Day, so it'll be interesting to see if this is.
I'm going to go see Training Day. That's what's going to happen for the Oscar nominations today. I'm going to go see Training Day again.
That's not. We have a whole list of things you've got to get through.
All right, also just real quick, back to Best Picture. I'm all about Dune. That thing surprised the heck out of me.
Oh, so you're a sci-fi girl?
No, I'm not. That's the point. And I loved it. I loved it. Okay.
Timothy
that
Chalamet
was
is so good.
The whole thing was great. Okay, so we went through actor. Let's look at actress in a leading role here.
Oh,
shall
okay. I was so excited but shocked that Kristen Stewart nominated for her role as Princess Diana in Spencer. I have heard mixed reviews of people what they thought of her in the film. I thought that she was spot on. She looked like Diana. She sounded like her. Tells the story of a really tough weekend for Diana while she is going through this tumultuous divorce with Prince Charles. I thought it was phenomenal. I was hooked watching that. Also, I was surprised to see Jessica Chastain nominated for The Eyes of Tammy Faye. She was so great in that movie, and I was also so happy for Nicole Kidman and being the Ricardos. Again, mixed reviews there. But I think that many people thought she was a shoo-in this year.
Yeah, and in terms of Kristen Stewart, you know, she was the front runner. People assumed that she was going to get nominated and that she was actually one of the top picks to win. And then her momentum kind of slowed down leading up to these nominations. And so Nicole Kidman, who had a late campaign, late December release for this film, really came in with some momentum at the last moment.
Yes. I also just want to point out someone that I'm really happy for is Ariana DeBose for her role as supporting actress in West Side Story. It's a really big moment for her this morning. Again, West Side Story, if you've seen it and you love it, they have a very devoted fan base. And again, big morning for Steven Spielberg, despite the lackluster performance at the box office, nominated for Best Picture and himself nominated for Best Director, like I mentioned before.
Maura, I just step back here for a second, if we can.
All right, Ken, are we done with this?
Wait a second. Let him talk.
So there's that one thing. Already, even before the pandemic, the movies that were being nominated for Academy Awards weren't exactly the mass market pictures here. So is this obscure within obscure, or is this year, is there more high profile stuff?
You know, everything is topsy-turvy because, as you noted, audiences have not gone back to the theaters at levels that they were at pre-pandemic. A lot of the films that we're seeing nominated were streaming only. And so the movie experience has changed. When you're watching something on your couch and maybe your kids interrupt you 10 times, you have to pause it all the time, that is a different experience than going out to the movie and sitting down for a theatrical release. And so that has changed viewership of these movies. And as you noted, the Academy tends to reward what they see as kind of the more artistic representation of film as opposed to box office hits.
Well, the box office hit this year was Spider-Man No Way Home, making over $1 billion at the box office. I loved the movie, and some people thought, is it going to make its way into the top 10? And it didn't. And so, you just don't see those types of movies, although that is what everybody was out seeing.
Any giant snubs?
I think that I'm going to have to look a little closer. As of right now, I was waiting for Kristen Stewart and possibly Will Smith to be daggers to my heart, but thankfully they are not. I think that things are looking really good. Licorice Pizza is a movie, though, that's going to get me back into theaters because it's the only place you can find it. And, of course, Encanto nominated for animated movie. Let's not talk about Bruno.
But the song, they did get a nomination for a song, but it wasn't Bruno. How is this possible?
They didn't put it up, right?
Okay, I guess that's painful enough, right? So, Mike,
enough bullshit. Yeah.
Let's get your first reaction. What do you think of these commentators?
Right. I mean, it's always good to hear from noted trained artists, people experienced in the field. I say this with all sarcasm intact. No, I couldn't care less what they said. But then again, to be fair to them, they're just giving, shall we say, what you might call light feature journalism takes on the whole thing. It basically, it's they're doing this in full consideration of who their audience is and what that audience wants to hear. That being said, the Academy Awards has been hyped out of all proportion to its usefulness in anything but monetary terms. It's always, the Academy Awards have always had problems right from the beginning because, again, it's been firstly the studio heads would put undue influence on who was going to win. There were periods in the late 50s and early 60s when, the movies more often than not, those that won were those that deserved to win. But when I say deserved to win in an artistic sense, but but those were certain windows of a few years, maybe 5 or 10 at one pop. But for most of the time, and especially today, the Academy Awards is more of a Madison Avenue style operation than it is an artistic operation in any sense. Remember that in the Academy Awards, the only category in which all the Academy members get to vote is Best Picture.
Oh, really? Oh,
Also,
right. Everything else is
yeah,
segregated to people in that profession.
To people in that profession. And so when they say Best Actor, well, 25%, somebody once quoted a figure, I don't know how accurate it is, 25%, and this might have been, it might be more now, 25% of the Screen Actors Guild have never done a play, have no acting training whatsoever. I mean,
Oh, God, come on. Snub. Go ahead.
Excuse me, but if you have no training...
There's no, you can't go like that. Has
Movie.
Marlon Brando ever done a play?
Wait a second, Ken. If you're going to interrupt me, then I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, it goes back to Robert Mitchum's line about, you know, what the secret of film acting was. And he said, well, one of the biggest stars in history was Rin Tin Tin. You tell me what the secret is. Okay, there is... So in other words, I'm talking about taking this seriously, or taking this seriously in any artistic sense. If you don't take it seriously in any artistic sense, then it is what it is. It's just a show. But this whole emphasis on awards, how do you decide? You know, in other words, if somebody, you could decide who got the most right answers on a test. If you're in school, okay, somebody who got the answers right, they got 10 out of 10. Okay, they can win the prize that the teacher gets out. But who decides what is the criteria for what the best film of the year is, what the best performance? These are simply a matter of recognition by your peers. And I think it's totally blown out of proportion. It's become, you know, in other words, this is a situation where rather than the movie, there are some people who would rather watch the award shows than the movies themselves. You know, it's about glitz, it's about glamour, it's about shtick, and fine. I mean, most of what we see on television is about that anyway. So I'm not saying that it should be banned or anything like that, but I just think that it needs to be put into proportion.
Okay, so now, Michael, please, what is an appropriate, verified, or authentic measure of standard of award or measurement or recognition in the acting profession
there
or
is
the production?
No
there is none?
Well, put it this way. There are certain standards, yes. No. But the idea is, when you say, if I say to you, I think, you know, Marlon Brando gave the best performance of a year, let's say, and you say, no, it was Laurence Olivier. What makes you right, or what makes me right?
Right.
It's subjective.
That's right. So but you're dissing. You're saying that most of these awards are trivial. So which awards are valid, authentic? Like a Pulitzer Prize or the Nobel Peace Prize. Which one do you think is authentic?
Well, I think the Nobel Peace Prize, which isn't in other words, it isn't voted on by just people who happen to get into the Nobel organization. I mean, when you get into the Academy, you know, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, it's because you have done a certain amount of work.
I know they're no good, but who's good? Who is good? What's good? They're bad. What's good?
I didn't say they're bad.
I know that. I'm asking you what's good. What's better?
Don't make it into something more than it is.
Well, what's better?
I don't know. I personally don't believe that highly in award ceremonies. I think you do your best work, and if you need to get an award for it, and you know that, I mean, awards are secondary to the actual work itself. But in the film industry, particularly in film and television, and to a certain degree in the music industry, but less so, the awards have become a predominating factor. In other words, the awards are going to be, people would say, oh, won the Academy Award, that means it's best. I mean, in generations previous, people didn't think that way. They made up their own minds. And basically they made up their own minds as to what they wanted to see. But let's face facts, all right? I can give you an example. You know, if you talk about the best actor, it's really the best performance by an actor. It's not saying the best actor, the best performance by an actor. But if you want to say that, I mean, does anybody on this show actually believe that the year John Wayne won, he gave the best performance of the year? No. There were other reasons and other factors involved. And that means this is more of a popularity. It's more of a popularity poll than it is a...
Mike, I think you're avoiding my question. What's better? What's more valid and authentic than the Academy Awards or the People's Choice Awards or the Cannes Film Festival, whatever other award systems exist? Which one do you consider to be authentic?
I don't consider any of them to be totally authentic.
Which the best? Which is the best? Which is the most
I don't know.
authentic?
I would say I would put Cannes above the Academy Awards. I would put the Golden Globes below the Academy Awards. You know, it depends. There's varying. I think BAFTA, the British Academy Awards, I would put a step above the American Academy Awards. They seem to be, at least so far, less motivated or maneuvered by money, or because, in other words, Academy Awards, to a certain degree, can mean how much money a particular movie is going to make, or especially can guide somebody else's career, although not necessarily. It may not. It may pump somebody else's career. It may not. There are people who have won Oscars who have gone on to almost nothing afterwards. But the fact is, what I'm just trying to say is that we're, you know, when you start putting the Academy Awards as the be-all or end-all of the movie industry, you're putting the cart before the horse. You know, there are some of the films we consider the greatest films of all time, with the exception of the original West Side Story, which did win 10 Academy Awards, 3 more than the new one is nominated for. Just had to sleep that in. And it actually won 11 because Jerome Robbins got a special Oscar for his work on that. But when you look at other, you can name movies that are considered among, you know, that people are raving about it being among the greatest movies of all time that weren't even nominated for Oscar. So the fact is that I think this is a bunch of really hype for the movie industry. It's and of course, hype is what the film industry is about. And I think the Academy Awards have gotten far less about quality. They get less and less about quality, at least in the past 20 years, 20 or 30 years, with a couple of exceptions. And, you know, a couple of each year, there's 1 or 2 awards, or 2 or 3 maybe, that have to do, you know, that really are, you know, seem to reflect some standard of quality. But, you know, it depends upon what people want to vote for and what's motivating their vote.
Yes, I have one major complaint with the Academy Awards, which I think most of you could at least empathize with. I've never been invited to attend, and I live very close. And I know some actors and so forth. And I've never gone. Actually, somehow I did get a hold of one of those bags of, what do they call that? Bling. You know, they give you a bling thing. But anyhow, okay, that's enough on the Academy Awards. Unless Alex wants to tune in.
Does anybody else want to comment on?
Yeah, Alex.
A little bit. Well, again, you know, I agree a lot with Mike on. Again, you know, well, again, I tend to like foreign films a lot more than American films. So I'm usually, with, you know, some exceptions, some years, you know, I'm usually disagreeing with the nominations and who they wind up choosing. And yeah, it's, you know, it's political. It's but it's about money too. Again, like they said, you know, I mean, certainly I don't think I hope any of us believe Titanic was the movie to deserve to win whatever year that was.
It didn't deserve to win most of the awards it won.
Well, the technical ones. It was technically impressive. The special effects and maybe this is the sound edit, things like that. I could see the film. The photographer. What. But again, they've not. The one film I felt was much more deserving is that they got no. I don't think got any nominations. Is on 9 Days, which I felt. Winston Duke, who's the main character in that, especially. I thought he gave the best performance of anybody, in all year of all the films I've. And again, I see a lot of films, so yeah. So the fact that they did it, even acknowledge that film basically is, I think, shows that yeah, they got it wrong. Although the only film I think, the kind of lesser film that I did like. Power of the Dog and Coda is deserving of some nominations, but other than that, a lot of the other films are just. Although I haven't seen Spencer, so I can't comment one way or the other on Kristen Stewart, who I've liked in other films, but I haven't seen that film particularly, so I can't comment on whether she should have gotten the nomination or whatever. So,
yeah. By the way, Alex, you brought up a good point, which is that there are wonderful films and performances that people don't get to see. They don't get distribution by the major film companies, et cetera, et cetera. And even most members of the Academy, even though they're sent the films, they may not bother to watch it, or the people who are on the nominating committees, it's like they once asked Maximilian Schell was voted by the, I think the Swiss or the Austrian government Arts Council, whatever, as the actor of the millennium. And Maximilian Schell's answer to that was, I don't know what that means, actor of the millennium. Surely someone in the 14th century was better than me. I mean, what you're really saying is best picture that's been seen by the most people, that's made the most money, or that's made some money, or gotten the most hype, or gotten the most press. Or the critics, and the state of film criticism today has, unfortunately, in my opinion, gone way down. It's also motivated by forces other than standards of quality. And but I think that you make a good. I mean, it's a good point that we're talking about the best, performance or whatever, the best, film, or the best cinematography or editing, which are very important categories also. Right.
It's like I was just looking for a comparison at the 6 1964 nominees, and Dr. Strangelove isn't nominated for anything.
Right.
Which is, but although there are some, But it actually funny. I don't disagree. It's a Mad Mad World has quite a few for like the editing, which again, that's a great film too. So and they did nominate some great films like Fellini's 8.5 and so on. So it's always a crapshoot with the Academy Awards, really.
Yeah, but even in a year like 1961, which is a very competitive year, and in which the Oscars were given out much more based on quality, but you had some very fine films. And yes, I know I'm a little biased because the real West Side Story film actually won.
Yeah,
okay.
Come on, I think you had to see a shrink about this. It's like you're going to get a tattoo. West Side Story on your forehead.
But no, the original, the real West Side Story.
The real one, not the fake one.
Not the new fake, the new version. But in 1961, Sidney Poitier did not get a nomination, I don't believe, for A Raisin in the Sun. So even in their best years, there are things that are overlooked. And the problem with that is these films still tend to stay over. The Academy kind of encourages people to only concentrate on those movies that are nominated, unless it's something like Spider-Man, which makes all this money. But there's other quality film performances, other accomplishments by people that may be appreciated 50 or 100 years later, but this determination.
Wait a minute. I got to interrupt you. I have to interrupt you. Sidney Poitier won Best Actor in 1964 for Lilies of the Field.
That was the 63 Oscars. They were given out in 64.
Okay, but he won for Lilies of the Field.
Yeah,
You're saying that he should have got another one the following year?
No, not the following year. 61, he should have been. I felt he should have been nominated for Raising the Sun.
Yeah. Okay.
Marvelous performance. He had done it on Broadway.
Yeah.
And he was nominated for a Tony. But the fact is that, I'm saying even in a relatively qualitatively better, one of the good years for the Oscars, you're still going to have things that are overlooked.
Well, you can only get 15 people on a bus. What do you want to do?
Well, that's just it. But that's the problem. You're saying, okay, these are the people we've selected. That doesn't mean the people who are outside of that selection are worthless. And if we play up the Oscars too much, because really what the Oscars are a pat on the back.
Right. Well, and good for marketing.
That's just it. It's turned into a marketing tool. It's turned into
and there are campaigns, from
Exactly.
Excuse me. It was always a marketing tool.
Oh,
There's no benefit to the public for running an Academy Award. It doesn't feed anybody. It's marketing. It's show business.
Right.
It always was. It always was.
It's gotten more so. It's gone
How
down.
How could it be? It always was.
It always was, but it's gotten worse.
No. You take a thing like the Pulitzer Prize or the Nobel Peace Prize. They award money, which goes towards people who have made accomplishments, Nobel Prizes for chemistry, literature, whatever. So they're supporting great contributions to society. Pulitzer Prize, I don't know if they give out a cash award. The Academy Awards, they just give you a goddamn Oscar. And all of these awards just give out piece of paper or statue. They don't give out a grant. So it's always been show business.
Right.
It's always a fashion show. It's a fashion show.
And it's sometimes political. Sometimes
it might be political.
Politically correct. Like, again, if you go back to 61, I think Spartacus won a number of awards, I think, in part as a response to the blacklist. And
no, that was 1960, Alex.
But it was 61. It was
no, Alex. Spartacus was they were the 1960 Academy Awards. They were given out.
Oh, right, 61. Yeah.
But it wasn't the same year that I was talking about. The 61 award.
Oh, okay.
Given out in
you mean 60? The ones that were awarded in 62.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out something completely that we haven't mentioned here, because I have because me and other members of the family subscribe to almost every goddamn movie service there is. There's too many movies to watch, but you can go on the internet and there's various critics, and the good ones will say 10 best horror movies on Amazon this month. Don't forget to watch this, and they'll give you clips and recommendations. And some of these guys are very good, and they're very populist. They're not talking about sophisticated concepts of that would only be appreciated by people who graduated from Stella Dora's School of Method Acting. It's not that sophisticated. This is an action flick, and it's this, and it's weird, and that, and so forth. So they give who was that reporter in New York that was very common vernacular guy, Jimmy Breslin, I think. He talks like to the regular, this and that. It's like a beer and a donut, So they give kind of very populist reviews, but they rank them. These are my 12 favorite.
That's when you still had working class reporters. Now everybody,
Right. But you get and I'm sure there's reporters for us elitist slobs too. The fine quality movies this week on Netflix, but they'll rank them. So there's in the digital universe on YouTube and various at least. And probably in many other places like Facebook and so forth, there's people ranking these videos or movies. I have a friend who's doing a podcast about Korean soap operas.
Oh yeah, those are popular.
She's a Latino who lives in Echo Park.
You can get them on some. Yeah, you can get them with subtitles.
That's right. But so there's appreciation for the cinematic arts,
right?
In various
like
places.
People who are fans of anime, which is
or Japanese horror movies and so forth.
But wait, Ken,
they're good, which are
good. Your question though.
What?
If you're going to take out any artistic considerations or any considerations about
it's all subjective.
What the plays. If you're just talking about popular, if you're just talking about what would appeal to the general public, to people who aren't interested in the artistic considerations, aren't interested in the craft, aren't interested in what the film is saying, they just want good entertainment. What do you need a critic for?
No, you're wrong.
Somebody to tell you what the film is about, then you can make your
No. You're defining what a critic is.
No, excuse me. There is a definition of what a critic is.
Go ahead, define it.
What do you need someone telling you their opinion about?
There are restaurant critics. There are automotive critics. There are travel critics. There are movie critics. There are clothes critics. There are furniture critics. Because you want other people's judgment. Beyond the concept of just conversation, because I want to sit here and talk about Fred Astaire, and has anybody ever been better than Fred Astaire? Because movies are like food. Everybody's participated. So it's a very common topic for discussion. But when you say, there's a guy who does automotive reviews, and he's been a mechanic for 50 years, so he gives reliable information. And that's what's valuable, and so forth. But some other guy, somebody else can give reviews about automobiles or electric vehicles from his viewpoint. And a lot of people are creating careers from that. And it's not just whether or not they have engineering degrees. It's a question about their ability to communicate. It's their ability to communicate.
You're not answering my question.
Well, no, because you're putting up a standard. You're not
answering my question is, if you're not dealing with somebody, let's say a food critic, somebody who is specialized in food or something like that.
No, not specialized.
Wait. No, I'm talking about if they're not somebody like that and they're just somebody who's giving their opinion, what do you need their opinion of?
I'm going to answer your question. I'll answer your question, okay? Yeah. Because this guy has watched 50 movies and he's recommending 10. That's what. I haven't watched those 50 movies. So I can take his pair down to says, I think these are the 10 best. And I can look at them and I'll say yes or no, I like them or I don't. But I don't have to look at all 50. And he's doing it in categories. And Netflix does this and Amazon does this. They have categories. They say, are you looking for a stupid, over-the-edge action movie, uber action? Are you looking for romance? Are you looking for thrillers? Are you looking for foreign movies? They categorize things. Are you looking for Academy Award winners? Are you looking for R-rated, X-rated? So this is all done because there's too many to choose from. So a critic gives you the advantage. There's too many cars, and purchasing a car is expensive. So you want people to give you an evaluation. Should I get the Chevy or the Ford? Should I get, I want to buy a convertible? And should I buy an electric car now or should I wait? So you want critics who have surveyed the field and come back with some concentrated, summarized opinions.
Okay, but Ken, this goes back to what Alex was saying, basically, which is that if somebody takes 50 films and they just take the best one, or 50 cars and they take the 10 best, of those other 40, some of them could be cars, not excellent cars, or the car that you really wanted. The fact of the matter is, you, the person who's going by what that person says, are risking missing out on something that may be very valuable.
But then you have to, with that, you got to kind of help yourself by, okay, you should then figure out a reviewer that has similar taste to you, basically.
That's it.
That's
right.
Don't if your thing is science fiction and action movies, don't go to all the films that Manohla Dargis likes, because she's a film snob, so you'll go to all those highfalutin and foreign films. Go for someone like A.O. Scott or who's there's another. I forget who the other guy is at the Times who does lots of action, likes action films. But yeah,
It's Alex, exactly correct. So that's the practicality of it.
And also, A.O. Scott's given good reviews to some of the Star Wars films, which so he has a very broad span of films that he likes, and he likes some big blockbusters.
But you see
so
that
if you're into that kind of thing, then go by him essentially.
But the problem is, and this is another problem with the Oscars also, is that normally what you're saying, if it worked properly, would be fine. But then people start saying, oh, he's the premier reviewer, or these are the mainstream, or this guy works for the Times. And I can tell you something, because you're the first string film critic on the New York Times doesn't mean you're the. Believe me, I know how people.
Oh yeah, no.
At least some of the time, how people have gotten those jobs. But the fact is that what's happening is we tend to focus on the most celebrated, the most famous, the most pumped up, the most hyped. And the fact of the matter is that because they're the most hyped, this is when Madison Avenue, which really went full blast, really in the not even in the 60s, in the 70s or 80s. This is where it's a matter of not what people necessarily want to see, not what the best thing is, but what we can sell them, what we can convince them of, what we can hype it as.
All right.
The problem that you're having.
Okay, we got what you're saying. Let's have a dialogue here. I disagree completely. Completely disagree.
We haven't asked Dennis yet. Dennis has an opinion.
Hey, Dennis, you got an opinion about the movies? When's the last time you watched the movies?
The Oscars, yeah.
The Oscars. Unmute, my friend.
He is unmuted.
There you go. What you got to say, Dennis?
Dennis, we can't hear you. You're not unmuted yet.
You're not. You got to.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yeah, now we
can hear you now.
I haven't watched the Oscars since I was a teenager.
There you go.
That's my comment.
Okay, great.
And those are the best words of wisdom I've heard. So.
Yeah, I've never watched them anyway. Since maybe my 20s, I still watched them. I haven't watched them over a decade ever.
They're good to bet on.
Oh yeah.
No, there was a very good Oscar. I think it was 2 years ago when a comedian named Ricky Gervais came and roasted everybody there.
Yeah,
I mean, it was hysterical. He did a really good job.
He roasted. Was that when he roasted Weinstein?
No, he was talking to everybody. He says, "You better watch out. Mia Farrow's son, what's his name?
Oh, Ronan Farrow.
Okay. Ronan Farrow's coming for each one of you. You know who you are."
Yeah, well, a lot of them probably deserve to have Ronan.
Oh, absolutely. That's right. Yeah.
And Ricky Gervais, I don't know if it was glossed over afterwards, but they were saying he'll never host an Oscar show ever again.
He said that. He says, "Don't worry, this is my last time on here."
Yeah.
He said. But the reason I say I disagree is because of this.
You should go on it so that you never come back. Like, who was the woman who did the big the reporter thing that happens in Washington each year when Trump first came in. And she roasted all of them about how they love Trump, which of course is all this stuff you tag Trump. That's bullshit. You love him. He's great for your ratings. And yeah, she never got caught. They never brought her back. But she did a great job. Michelle Goldberg, I think. She just torched them. And but
Steve Colbert did that too. Yeah, Steve Colbert did that with Bush. Bush 1, I think. Or Bush 2. But anyhow, my disagreement about that is this. We are not living in Dickens' England in the 1850s. So we have the ability to connect with anybody at any time, anywhere in the world. So we don't have to find the hyped critic. We can find a critic that we like.
Yeah,
we appreciate.
There are so many movie podcasts, for
Yeah.
Whatever your interest is, you can go to them to.
I can
what films you
guarantee.
should
One
see.
second, let me close the door. I have to tell you this. 1 second.
Wait, he
Ken's got to keep his wife from hearing this.
I had to close the door. I have absolute certainty that my son does not recommend good movies. Because I've watched 2 or 3 of them. They're terrible.
Oh boy!
There was a movie called Tampopo.
Oh, yeah, that's a great film. The
there you go. It's a great film.
Japanese film about food. Yeah, that's.
I'm sure it was a great film 20 years ago when nothing else was happening. But there've been so many better movies about that slice of life thing and so forth.
Oh yeah, sure.
So it's okay if it's time, and so forth, and But I'm just saying, there's ample opportunity. You can go on YouTube. I've been on YouTube. I discovered a whole new genre of the arts that I was completely blind to, which is female pianists. There's a gorgeous video called the 14 Beautiful Female Pianists, and it's incredible, and the performances are outrageous. They're all classical. Or you can go on X Factor, and that's the other thing I want to bring up in terms of judgment. These days, the last 20 years, there have been TV shows.
Ken.
Wait, 1 minute. I'm going to finish what I'm saying. I got the power to mute. So anyhow, they for 14 or 20 years, they've been having these shows which are based on celebrity judges, but also on the audience voting. So it's a public thing, and it's a question of who's got the best voice. Well, according to the public, this guy's got the best voice, or the best juggler, or the best performer. So it's different now. It's not the same as what did this guy, this 80-year-old guy say who won the beauty contest. It's a question of popularity. And we have, people who I think are total hype and ridiculous. Most people are going to disagree with me. I think her name is Brianna. I just don't see it. I go, what are we talking about? What's the talent? Where? I don't get it. And, but other people, there's people I love that nobody else likes. So that's fine. That's the freedom we have. But I'm just saying there's critics all over the place. You're not there. It isn't locked up. Like you said, Academy Awards don't necessarily guarantee big box office or a solid career. In fact, they call it the Oscar curse, right? Some people who got awards, their careers died. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Let's
interrupt
have a difference here. Let's delineate between what is good and what you like. There are things that I
You
like.
cannot. There is no such distinction in the arts. That's totally ridiculous. I like this painting. It's the best painting.
Everything. I can tell you right off the bat right now that I can recognize that Samuel Beckett's plays are good. They're works of art. But I don't like them. I don't want to watch them. They're not my cup of tea. But I still recognize they're good. And if we as a society can't differentiate between what is good and what we like and don't see, I mean, sometimes it's one and the same, and sometimes it's not. And if we can't make that difference, then we're cooked as a society.
You really must believe in the Olympian panoply of the gods, that there's some cosmic thing which decides this is beauty, this is elegant, this is good, that's
there are
crass.
Standards.
Standards are generated by individuals.
Standards are generated by individuals and societies and the nature of the profession or the art or the craft itself.
Yeah. Okay? So what do you think of Kabuki theater?
I like Kabuki.
You like Kabuki, huh? Okay, great.
There's good Kabuki and there's not so good Kabuki. Kabuki is a theater style. So sometimes...
Oh, I like underwater puppeteers. That's what I like. Okay. Puppet shows underwater. I mean, you're just making up stories. There is no standard.
But
there's lots of standards. The standards are set by people. There's no cosmic standard.
It doesn't matter. There are standards.
No.
There is a standard of truth, for instance. There is something called truth. It
really?
Isn't what you want it to be.
Okay. Right? In the arts.
In the arts, there are some things, okay, it is still it is still not totally objective. It is still subjective, but there are certain standards within that framework. There are certain standards of art.
What was the name of that guy? What's the name of the guy with the camel suit?
That you can't like something that isn't artistic or that isn't high quality. You can
come on. Oh, come on. What are you trying to... You're going to bring an apple to the teacher, high quality? Come on. What are you talking about?
What you're saying, Ken, is there's no such thing as quality?
All right.
It's a subjective reality.
We have to separate you now.
No. I mean, if there's no such thing as quality, we know...
Let's just agree to disagree.
Yeah. Ken, you mute yourself, Ken. Ken, you're muted.
I'm muted. I like muting myself. Are you going to come up with another one, or am I going to pull up a thing about the New York crime?
No. We can.
You got one?
I do this yesterday. Let me. Oh, I got to reload it. Okay, yeah. Here we go. So, I know Ken knows this, but well, I should explain for our viewers anyway because they may not know it. Project Censored combines journalists and academics who look at the most censored. Every year they compile a very good book on the most censored stories of the year, and the only place I can find any measure of that is actually on Lee Camp's Redacted Tonight. But so he's going to. We'll play this. It's 6 minutes. It's the top 3. They do I think 10 or 15 every year. So this is the top 3, and let's hear what their most censored the stories you didn't hear about on the regular news, and and then we can talk about them because there are quite a few doozies in this one. But here, let me wait to full.
Welcome, hello. It's good to see you again. Welcome to Redacted Tonight. Every year I go over some of the most censored stories from the year before.
You guys are hearing
I get these stories from Project Censored at projectcensored.org.
We can hear it, but could you zoom in?
That I wish I could tell you more about, but unfortunately the project is censored. It's appropriately named, much like Lil Wayne, who is both Little and Wayne. So, as Nancy Reagan once said to the prone-ass chicks of the Grand Wizard of the Freemasons, let's dive into this. Number 1 of the most censored of the year, prescription drug costs set to become a leading cause of death for elderly Americans. That's right, the U.S. for-profit healthcare system is killing people. I know you find that as shocking as Wells Fargo overcharging people, but yes, more than 1.1 million seniors could die prematurely over the next decade because they will be unable to afford the high prices of their prescription medications. Cost-related non-adherence will become a leading cause of death in the U.S. ahead of diabetes, influenza, pneumonia, and kidney disease by 2030. This is how fucking crazy our system is. Millions of seniors across America are currently thinking to themselves, I've been told to get this medication that will stop my seizures or keep my heart beating or decrease the odds I'll blow a vital organ out my catheter. But I can't afford it because it's thousands of dollars a month. So instead, I'll simply lay a tarp down underneath me and take my chances. You see, not taking necessary medications can cause what they call in the medical community premature death, which is like one of the worst things you can get prematurely. The only thing worse is premature creepy crawly infestation of the ball sack before exploding disorder. My cousin had that. In fact, they named it after him. What? He's Dutch. Next up in the year's most censored stories, the historic wave of wildcat strikes that are demanding worker rights. Now, if you're like me and you think wildcat strikes are when workers get together dressed like the Thundercats and smear their poo outside their boss's office, you're only half right. It does involve workers. A wildcat strike is a strike that is not approved by the union higher-ups. It's basically just workers getting together and saying, you know what? Fuck this! We've had enough! I'm not pouring one more coffee for a woman in Uggs whining that her half-calf latte has a third too much half-calf, which is not a solvable math equation. So I want 50 cents more an hour, which I think is very reasonable. Wildcat strikes have reached into the thousands over the past 2 years. Far more than the U.S. has seen in previous decades, and yet almost entirely ignored by your garbage, propagandistic piles of mucus mainstream media that I am not a fan of. In fact, I'm taking my mainstream media fan club out of my wallet. That is very manly, even though there's a sticker of a K-pop band on it. Taking this out, and I am cutting it up right now, right here on live TV. Boom! Done with it. Shit, that's my credit card. Anyway, point still stands. Next up in the list of most censored stories of the year, journalists investigating financial crimes have been threatened by global elites. The Foreign Policy Center report reveals that global elites have been abusing their legal and financial powers by targeting reporters with defamation lawsuits, cease and desist letters, social media smear campaigns, trolling, verbal harassment, and even occasionally physical violence. Oh, so it's like the mafia or a drug cartel or the Girl Scouts if you don't buy their child labor cookies. You reveal what one of those groups is really up to, and they'll kill you. Or worse, pay people to make fun of you on Instagram. So this means that the global elite, a group of people who have the most money, the most power, and the most Jenny Craig weight loss franchise locations, they behave like the mafia. So essentially, the world is run by the mafia. That actually explains a lot, such as why the Democrats couldn't get the minimum wage increased, yet passed a bill for higher minimum horse heads in your bed. Perhaps more astonishing than the fact that the journalists revealing large-scale financial crimes are being persecuted is that the other journalists won't cover this story. You know, the ones whose closest thing to investigative reporting is asking the former head of the CIA/new correspondent how his weekend was. The ones on the mainstream airwaves. They treat this story the same way people treat being asked by a friend to help them move. They won't get near it. In order to get out of helping a friend move, I once pretended to be racist for a month so he'd end the friendship. Probably should have just said I had a bad back. But how can they not cover this story? It's their colleagues getting attacked, but they don't cover it because mainstream media reporters are meant to protect the ruling elite. Even when they go after someone rich and elite like Trump, it's in order to protect their corporate owners from Trump, who was accidentally revealing what the American empire actually is. It's racist, it's cruel, it's selfish, it's sociopathic. Trump couldn't cover that up because those are his favorite qualities about himself. Moving on, we have time for one more of the most censored stories of the year. And no, it has nothing to do with Novak Djokovic getting banned from that tournament for stealing several of the ball boys, smuggling them to his palatial Serbian villa, and forcing them to toss melon balls into his mouth from a great distance. Turns out that's not actually frowned upon by the International Tennis Federation. No, the next most censored story is that U.S. factory farms are a breeding ground for the next pandemic. The threat boils down to American excess, Jessica Moss wrote. Over the past 50 years, meat production has increased about 260%, mostly because of Burger King's new Eat Your Way Out meat helmet. 3 people died from that, but survivors say it's delicious. Survivors say it's delicious was also the name of a limited liability brothel I briefly owned. Small world. Anyway, as Moss reported, 99% of U.S. meat comes from factory farms, where poor conditions and stress on the animals means that disease can emerge on the farms and spread through the herd at lightning speed. This means that in factory farms, the diseases mutate quickly and aggressively, like Candace Owens in her first career as Thunderdome champion. On top of that, many of the animals are pumped full of antibiotics because it's the only way they will survive when stacked on top of each other, knee-deep in shit and rotting vomit. It's the same reason everyone at the White House is pumped full of antibiotics. Except for Chief of Staff Ron Klain. He just showed up looking like that. Point being, the uniquely disgusting, uniquely grotesque American factory farming is a breeding ground for antibiotic-resistant superbugs. So if you want to create another pandemic disease that wreaks havoc on humans and screws up all of our lives, factory farms are how you fucking do it. A distant second is the vampire bat cavern where Jared and Ivanka make sex.
So, it's a comedy show too. But again, the two stories that I think we should highlight are, again, obviously that somebody more than 1 million seniors could die because they're not going to be able to afford their medications. And then the last one about, the likelihood that, and not just, of course, American factory farms, because there are so many animals there, it's always been China that's been the source of a lot of the pandemics in the first place. But yeah, it could come from anywhere. In fact, again, just by coincidence, Al Jazeera had a story today about an outbreak of avian flu in Africa that's forcing them to kill, in Ghana, millions of chickens. And of course, again, that's the one they've always been worried about, again, that you're going to get another big influenza pandemic from something that would, from variant of avian flu that could jump to humans and, not, of course, coronavirus. So some could be something worse than coronavirus because, again, it was, of course, a variant of influenza, that the Spanish flu that killed, 20, 60 million people, depending on how you count. So, but I'll let you, Ken, what are your thoughts on some of these, censored stories and just in general, again? Why do you think media doesn't talk about these kinds of things? And
I think most media institutions are governed by editorial dictation. In other words, they're given an agenda, what they should push or not push. And some of these issues, they may not be able to get a political bent. And if the main thing they're doing is pushing a political party, they say, well, this thing, let's say, but the Democrats and the Republicans are pretty even on this. I'm not going to cover it. I don't know why. They're just scumbags for not reporting it.
You don't think it's just about, we have only 5 corporations and they're also dependent on advertising dollars from
there is no. I can tell you real fast. I normally don't like to get into anecdotal stories, but I have a friend who was fighting the Los Angeles school district for 8 years because he was fired because he wouldn't graduate students who didn't qualify. He would give them Fs.
Oh, wow.
And so, and this is a mill they got going, and they're just making money, and if the kid's not in class, they don't get paid, and so forth and so on. So they inappropriately shit-canned them. Oh, and another thing they're doing is they're getting rid of guys who are 60 or 65 because they're going to retire, and it costs on the average $60,000 to service
so they keep them from collecting a pension? Is that
yeah. So they kick them out because if they did something racial or, they put them up on some stupid charge, and then they say, look, why don't you settle for $10,000 or $5,000 and take a walk. And so they've been doing this. So he started fighting this.
Suing them, huh?
He started fighting this in court, not suing them, fighting this in court. And then he put up a website. You can look it up. PERDAR Daily. PER Daily. I don't remember what the
put it in the
PERdaily.com. Yeah, I'll put it in a. But anyhow, here's the story on the news. Yeah. He went to the reporters and told them about this. If the thousands of teachers across the country are being railroaded off so that they don't have to pay the pensions. And she said, we can't cover that.
Really?
That's true, but we can't cover that. And they just don't cover it. And at a media conference once, I was talking to a lady from no, she made a speech in front of an audience there. She says, well, the program content depends upon what kind of grants you get.
Wow.
So if you get a grant from a company to look into how are students doing on science, then you could do something on that. Or, what are we doing to help the pigeons, or whatever it is that wants to give you a grant, you'll do a show for that. And if you don't get a grant for it, you're not going to get a show on it. So
Right.
I haven't heard, here's a funny thing that nobody has covered. One would anticipate that there would be a tremendous outbreak of COVID-19 amongst the homeless. Okay? You
Right.
would have, I haven't heard word one. I haven't
Really?
heard anything about how they're preventing it or how it is a scene or what, nothing. Nobody mentions it for some political
Yeah,
reasons.
you would think they make sure to test them, or I don't know.
Well, there's some kind of report about it. Nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing.
yeah, no.
So,
Yeah.
you can look at that. And, or like this guy says, we all know it's starting to get mentioned, at least. The opioid epidemic is the number one killer of males between the age of 24 and 55.
Yeah, especially
It's
I think
number one.
white males, especially.
Yeah, white males more than black, maybe, because they kick off with coke or no. What's that other thing? Fentanyl. But with white males, it's opioids.
Right.
So, but there's mention of it, but there's no examination where it's coming from. Just rumors. It's manufactured in China, but it comes through Mexico.
Oh,
I don't know. You don't hear anything about gangs. Haven't heard anything about gangs in like 30 years. And there's like 80,000 gang members in L.A., and 1 million in the U.S.
Trump mentions MS-13 and the Republicans mention that every so often.
Yeah, but they mention MS-13, but they don't talk about And MS-13 just bought an old academy, a school, a college, and they turned it into a training ground. You don't hear stories about them. They're just used as a cliche.
Boogeyman.
A boogeyman cliche. So there's lots of stories. So Project Censored is very good.
Yeah, they have their website, I think, is projectcensored.org.
Donate to them.
you can look up all their their most censored stories.
I think don't you think they're in the genre with like Norman, the guy for Common Cause, the guy who ran for president. I always forget. I can't.
I know who you mean, but I'm blanking on his last name. Yeah.
Isn't it Norman? Not Norman Mailer.
Not Norman Mailer. No.
Ralph.
Oh, Ralph Nader.
That's it. Ralph Nader.
Oh, yeah.
Project Censored. Same kind of a thing. Same kind of thing.
He was always about consumer protection and.
Well,
that's
right.
Let's go to Mike. Hey, Mike, what you got?
Let me tell you something. First of all, Alex, you should take those stories, just the ones he covered, just the ones that were covered in that clip, itemize them, and each one of those we could spend an hour on if we had to. Those are very, very good stories, and he's right. People didn't talk about it, and I'll tell you a little story. During the latter part of my university career, which went on for about 5.5 years, not 4, because I took the 1.5 years off. But the latter part of it, I had co-founded a paper called the Stony Brook Press, which is still operating today at Stony Brook University, and we had come into possession of 2,000 bad welding points at the Shoreham nuclear power plant, which of course thank God, never opened. And I was also had connections with the New York Times and Newsday at the time. So we said, hey, this story, is bigger than a university newspaper. This needs to get out there. So we went to the New York Times and we went to Newsday. Well, the Long Island Lighting Company, which was the Long Island's lighting company at the time, that was the power company on Long Island.
Wilco is what it was called.
Yeah, and they, of course, Shoreham was going to be operating under them. So Lilco had a connection with Newsday through the board of directors. Same thing with New York Times and Con Ed. They didn't print it because Con Ed didn't want the New York Times to print it, and because it was an anti-nuclear energy thing, they felt. and Loco didn't want Newsday to print it. We wound up printing it, and they still wouldn't pick it up. As a matter of fact, they were among the last newspapers to pick up the story, and it was about something in their, locale. So the fact is, this has been going on
because might explain, a lot of people won't know what area of Long.
Oh, excuse me.
That Newsday covered, yeah, because there were Long Island papers, I remember, right?
Newsday was covered well, they covered New York City issues. There was New York City edition. It was mainly a Long Island newspaper, which is the suburbs, covers. It supposedly covered Brooklyn and Queens also, but primarily Nassau and Suffolk counties. But it was still a major New York newspaper. And the New York Times, of course, we know what it is, what it covers. But this was something on their doorstep. But of course, they had their fingers in the pie. So this has been going on. This kind of censoring of the news has been going on for a long, long time. Sometimes it's self-censoring. It happened to a certain degree with Watergate with some publication. The fact is, many times we get, it works out that the truth comes out. Somebody publishes it, it gets out there. That happened with Shoreham. We wound up publishing it. Other people wound up picking up on it, and finally Shoreham didn't open because of primarily because of those welding points. But the fact of the matter is that the censoring of the news, it happens for different reasons. It's different kinds of censoring. But yeah, there are major stories that don't get out there. And it's not because it's, it violates national security or anything like that. It's because it violates the interests of some very well-placed individuals or corporations, and they don't want those stories played up. The stories do come out, but they're not picked up by the mainstream media.
Right, I just wanted to put up the Project Censored website so people can know where to go.
Yeah.
So again, it's projectcensored.org. You can also get their book is excellent every year. So here's 25 most. This is again in order. 25 most censored, and they're always good. Well, go on, Mike.
Yeah. But there are stories, in other words, the whole thing about the pandemic and the, as I said, all those stories are major stories or should be major stories. Think about food production or the factory farming and the next pandemic. Well, I knew when I was a teenager, I had been told that one of the problems with eating red meat in particular is that when the animals are killed, adrenaline shoots into their system, even if they're killed, almost immediately. When we eat the meat, we're getting this adrenaline in our system. It lowers our ability to process adrenaline. In other words, our adrenaline isn't going to work as well. And that was just adrenaline. Of course, it's happening with antibiotics. We always knew that. That's where we get the both the superbugs and the inability of antibiotics to be effective again. So a story like that should be a major story. Whatever it is, whatever the censorship reasons are, that's something where our show in particular should be involved in getting these stories out there more so. We don't need, to be quite honest, just going back about what they don't need us to talk about the Oscars. Yeah, it helps if we do that every once in a while to keep people's interest up. But we do need to be talking about factory farming. We do need to be talking about the Wildcat Strikes. We do need to be talking about, I even forgot, what was the, Alex?
The other story, well, the other big story was, again, many seniors are gonna die because of prescription drug costs. Yeah.
Prescription drug medication and the fourth story. These are stories that we really should be delving into.
Yeah, we can go through there. Again, there are 25 of them, so we can go through a bunch of them. But Jim just came on, so Ken.
How did it go tonight, Jim?
I don't want to have you do a lot of editing, Kenny.
Okay.
All right. Well, actually, one interesting thing we can do too, again, there's a new poll that Yahoo did that I thought would be interesting to look at. Again, both on the course of the country, Biden's approval rating, but also they did some polling about COVID related, how people feel about, different vaccines and so on. So they correlated their data based on who got vaccinated and who did it. Like for, do you approve of Biden? So it's some interesting. I can put that up, Ken, if you can go through that. You're muted, Ken.
Go ahead, put it
By
up.
the way,
Okay,
Alex, you should also mention that the mask mandate for New York State comes
Right,
off
has
in about an hour and a half.
Right. Okay, so let's again. It's a long, but let's go through the more important parts. So you guys can see. Oh, let me move. Yeah, off to the side. Okay, so you can see generally people are not very positive about where the country is. You can see 26 total, 26% think the country is going in the right direction. 61% of those polled here. Again, the survey was done from January 20th to 24th of this year. So yeah, so 61% think the country's on the wrong track, 13% not sure. Again, as we might expect, again, Democrats are much more positive, Republicans incredibly negative, but of course the reason it's on heavily on the wrong track is because, again, basically independents are not quite as negative as the Republicans, but very negative still. And that holds for, as we'll see, for other factors. But again, it's interesting. If you were interested in, correlating, again, vaccination.
Alex, go back to the income numbers. Go back to
the income. Yeah, that was interesting too. That, it was the lowest again for between 50 and 100,000 a year, and people were under. Well, again, you would think poor people would be more negative, but no. Again, and although I guess it does that 35% of people making 100,000 or more a year think it's in the right direction. Of course, they've done great during COVID, and so
I'd like to point out before you go anywhere. Right
but
above that under
racial
race
breakdown of people.
If you look at this racial breakdown, that's a real anomaly.
But also look at age. Again,
No. The anomaly is on the black race.
Right.
That's a big anomaly compared to all the other numbers.
Right. You might argue again that's because there are they're so heavily Democrat, and again we see Democrats are the only group who are positive about.
That's another anomaly. Look at that.
Yeah. But as Jim was saying, it's interesting that it's kind of like it goes up in the middle of income and then goes down. Although again, the percentage those saying things are going well increases with income essentially.
Well, the people between 50 and 100,000, when they did their first studies of Trump supporters, they estimated they made about 70,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And that particular group is where people are sort of beyond the realm of being affected by social entitlement measures and legislation.
Right.
And so the burden of taxes falls on them. Mm-hmm. And, that's where this kind of resentment has been building up for decades. So that doesn't surprise me to see that kind of large number.
Yeah, it's interesting again that they're polling based on vaccination now, who's been vaccinated. And you would say again a little bit, those who are fully vaccinated are a little more positive about the country. But again, still, it's a minority who think we're in the direction, going in the right direction. And then, then they break off 18 and under. All right, going on. So here's Biden's approval, which again is not improved. Of course, again, there's a gender gap here, as always. Again, tend to, I think, vote more Republican a little bit. But here again is the age. in which you can see again, actually, you boomers like Biden a lot more than essentially anybody else. Also, again, of course, there's the again, it's only African Americans that have where he's a majority approve of Biden.
Well, there's a simple explanation for that, Alex.
Yeah.
We're smarter than you millennials.
Well, no, I'm not millennial. I'm Generation X, Jim. So I'm the 45 to 64. So, yeah. Right. And here again is the party. Well, again, this correlates. But again, the overall is 40% approve, 53% disapprove, 8% not sure total. And again here, well, again, and again here, for the 100K up, again, they should approve because again, again, it's really the millionaires, of course, who've done great under Biden, under Trump too. So, let's see, so again here now they break things down by different issues like coronavirus. Here, do you think President Biden is doing well handling coronavirus? Again, there's 43-50. Again, we see the racial correlation, income, party, and this is interesting. Again, go to economy. Again, he's doing a little bit worse than his general approval. Again, 38-52 here.
Yeah, but you know what that reflects? See, that's where you really see it's interesting because the average American is sitting there going to shop.
Right, it's inflation.
And they see inflation. And so who do you blame? Do you blame the corporate concentration of power?
Right.
Do you blame the people who are benefiting by the pandemic and getting richer? No. You blame the president, because
you blame the government. Yeah.
Well, that's been
that's been for a long time. Yeah,
by the Republicans and the conservatives, that's been going on for 70 years now.
Right, and then that was interesting again how they treat what they think of foreign policy, which again is even more negative. So again, this of course is a bit into this whole Ukraine crisis. So obviously, at least at this point, that's not helping Biden much because again, his approval is lower for that than for
You got Ukraine, but you also have Afghanistan.
Right. Well, that's true. That's true. He's
earlier today, I heard a BBC reporter. There's a very interesting study group that meets in London once a month. It's called the POTUS Study Group, President of the United States Study Group. It's all Brits, and they had a BBC reporter there who was covering Ottawa. And the thing she raised, she's a non-American, so she's been covering American politics for 6 years. And the thing that she raised right away was the whole question of how Afghanistan, she sees that as a very decisive turning point in the perception of Biden, whether we like it or not. Because that she sees as when and then of course the fact that he hasn't been able to get his domestic agenda through, which we have covered in great depth on this show for weeks and months in detail. So again, it's not that surprising to hear her say this. And some of the people were asking, well, what's the chance of Trump running again and getting reelected? Which is a real possibility, as we all know.
Right. Well, here's how Biden comes out on race, which again is relatively even evenly 41-46, and with again a larger not sure 14% here. All right. Well, we're gonna skip through schools.
Wait, stop and go back to the gender. That's sort of interesting.
Right.
Wait, that's up, go down.
On schools, you mean?
The gender. Yeah, there we go. The gender stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because look at that. Now, women. Okay, so there you see the way they've been going bananas with that school issue,
right?
The critical race theory issue. That sort of straight down on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Where 51% of males disapprove of what he's doing in schools, because they have a total misperception. They bought into this complete baloney about what's going on with this issue. Amazing. That's quite interesting.
Right. Well, you think again, yeah, more women are teachers, and also probably go to parent teacher meetings where they probably have a better understanding of what's really going on in the schools than men who just probably many of them I'm sure just get their ideas about this from like Fox News or something like that. Yeah.
And the fact that more women are mothers.
Okay. So here again on climate change, it's about where he is, in total on approval, disapproval.
By the way, Alex, how does he?
Let me get again.
Is there any comparison between this and what Trump's ratings were at the same point?
Well, you would have to go into some of those old polls. Trump wasn't doing so great, I think, at this point in his presidency either. Maybe I think it was a little bit higher on it. Maybe it was like 42 or 43% approval. But yeah, not too much better. And obviously, again, it would reverse on Democrat, Republican, probably, male, gender, age, those would be.
Amazing that he was doing
further
better
down where they get into here, the COVID, here, this is very interesting, what people think of COVID. How worried are you? 59% worried, 42% though not worried. And again, with skewed again for women being higher, but it's interesting again. This makes sense again that it's a 65 plus, which of course this is the group that's at much greater, really like above 70, I think, or above 80. It goes up to 62% who are worried. But also here again, non-whites much more. Again, when we know that correlates, of course, probably they've seen a lot more people die from COVID because we know the racial disparities with COVID. So that definitely makes sense.
Also, they're just a little bit more savvy.
Right. And here again, we'll see again on this one, independents are, more, it's the Republicans who are, in denial, basically, of course. And Trump voters, especially 31% are worried about, again, they're the ones who think it's just a flu, right? But again, here, this is interesting, again, that income does not appear to affect, except again, the percentage not worried goes down a little bit as you get richer, essentially.
Huh.
I wanted to ask you, did you guys talk today about Gary Chambers and his race for Senate in Louisiana?
No, we didn't come across that, no.
All right, let me just share this. Let me share
okay.
This is a lot of fun. Now, let me share the screen, Kenny. This is a lot of fun. This is a guy running against that Oxford-trained Southerner from a state of Louisiana, who is, Mr. Kennedy. Kennedy. And this is
Jim, be sure to turn on the sound to send the sound.
Share computer sound,
Sure.
Go to where it says more at the top.
I already did that.
Someone is arrested for possession of marijuana. Since 2010, state and local police have arrested an estimated 7.3 million Americans for violating marijuana laws, over half of all drug arrests. Black people are 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana laws than white people. States waste $3.7 billion enforcing marijuana laws every year. Most of the people police are arresting aren't dealers, but rather people with small amounts of pot, just like me. I'm Gary Chambers, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Now, I actually, when I saw this ad, I said, you can imagine how much I loved it.
Yeah, it's a great ad.
I said, we got to get this guy on. Now, let me show you this. This is a debate.
So he's running for the Democratic nomination, I presume.
He's running for the Democratic nomination in the state of Louisiana against Kennedy. And who knows? I doubt he'll get it. He was in actually New York.
Yeah, but he sounds great. Yeah. Just that ad.
This is him in a Confederate identity issue debate in Baton Rouge a couple of years ago, and this is quite hilarious. This went completely viral when it was on. Let me just see if we can get on here. All right.
Next.
So I had intended to get up here and talk about how racist Robert E. Lee was, but I'm gonna talk about you, Connie. Sitting over there shopping while we talking about Robert E. Lee. This is a picture of you shopping while we talking about racism and history in this country. Only white members of this board got up while we were up here talking too, because you don't give a damn, and it's clear. But I'm gonna tell you what the slaves, my ancestors, said about Robert E. Lee, since you don't know history, sister. Let me tell you that they said when he got the plantation, after he got off the field where 27,000 people died at Gettysburg, Connie, Robert E. Lee was a brutal slave master. Not only did when he whooped the slaves, he said, lay it on them hard. After he said, lay it on them hard, he said, put brine on them so it'll burn them. That's what Robert E. Lee did. And you set your arrogant self in here and sit on there shopping while the pain and the hurt of the people of this community is on display, because you don't give a damn and you should resign. You should have resigned 2 years ago when you choked a white man in his house. You should have resigned 2 weeks ago when you got on TV and said foolishness. And you should walk out of here and resign and never come back, because you are the example of racism in this community.
No,
you are horrible. Not to the rest of the board. You have an obligation to the people of this community, and 81% of them are black. And do you need a Klan rally outside, Mr. Goldstein, before you end it? Because holding it up means that you put that building in jeopardy. You do, sir. Because all over the country, they're burning stuff down. And black folks in this city have stood with protesters. I ain't seen you elected officials out there with them, making sure that nothing goes south in Baton Rouge. It's been folks in this community who give a damn, not just when it's comfortable, but every time. And 4 years ago, we came down here. Mr. Drake, they say you're a good man. Be a good man. Black folks say you're a good man. White folks say you're a good man. Your legacy is attached to tonight, brother. Your legacy. Now, let me say to the black members of the board, it's the most solidarity I've seen out of y'all in forever. Let's keep it at. Let's stand on this moving forward, because we don't need to apologize for Connie, Evelyn. She showed you who she was when she was sitting next to you while you were talking shopping. You don't need another example. Now, when do we as Baton Rouge stop being in 1856? If you want to name the building after somebody, how about PBS Pinchback, the first black governor of the state of Louisiana, when he was governor during Reconstruction? You want another name? Oscar Dunn, who was the lieutenant governor of the state of Louisiana in the 1860s, that gave the right for Darius Landis and Don Collins and Evelyn Ware Jackson and Tremel Howard to get here. You want to name it after somebody from Reconstruction? Name it after the people who fought for abolition of slavery. If you want to name it after somebody, honor the right people, the people who are on the right side of history. But it's your ancestor that the school is named after. So you're holding on to your heritage. But we built this joint for free. And we've done begging you to do what's right.
Thank you, sir. All right. He's like my kind of guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I like that. I like that, you know, because, you know, look, in the South, it's a little different. You know, you deal with the kind of hyperbole you get at these Pacifica meetings in the East. Maybe Texas, they'd have some righteousness down there, but particularly down the Deep South, yeah, I love that stuff. I've been in events like that where guys have gone off like that, and I love every minute of it. So anyway, I thought I'd introduce you.
Great, yeah, yeah.
Running for.
No, we could get him on. That would be great. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I sent him out a message. Now he was at what's that? He was at Sylvia's for a fundraiser yesterday. And
really? Oh wow.
Oh yeah, and the first amount of money you could give was $500. So forget about it.
Yeah, Jim. So maybe do you know what his campaign website is? If people, people do want to donate.
Why don't you track that down, Alex?
It's Gary Campbell, right?
Gary Chambers.
Sorry, Chambers Jr.
U.S. Senate, but
Jim.
Yeah.
Question: When was that done? I mean, I thought he did a great job. When was that clip? When did that happen?
That was a couple. Well, yeah, as you can see, it was well rehearsed. When he came in there, he had that down. He'd rehearsed that little number pretty well. But he's he's quite a character, obviously, and he doesn't give a damn about saying certain things. So I think
he also, according to Yahoo News, he also did a video where he burns a Confederate flag that also went viral.
Well,
we
let's
have to track that down.
There,
That's from today. That's from today. So that must be a new ad of his.
Go dig that
He
up.
released it. Yeah, he released it today. So we got to find that.
let's
We'll
look
play
at that. Now,
play
just-
that next week. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so that's just to give you a sense of like the craziness going on outside in the United States. And it's funny.
No, I have it. I can put it up, Jim.
Yeah, why don't you put it up? Let's see him burn an American flag. That's a Confederate flag. That should be hilarious.
Give me a sec to load it.
These truths to be self.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Here we go. Just a minute. So.
That's the American flag.
Well, wait. It's gonna change. I think.
They said we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. But here in Louisiana and all over the South, Jim Crow never really left, and the remnants of the Confederacy remain. In 1873, when a black man named PBS Pinchback won a U.S. Senate race, he was never seated. They claimed election fraud. The attacks against black people, our right to vote, and participate in this democracy are methodical. Gerrymandered districts are a byproduct of the Confederacy. Our system isn't broken. It's designed to do exactly what it's doing, which is producing measurable inequity. 1 in 13 black Americans are deprived of the right to vote. 1 in 9 black Americans do not have health insurance. 1 in 3 black children live in poverty. It's time to burn what remains of the Confederacy down. I do believe the South will rise again, but this time it'll be on our terms. I'm Gary Chambers and I'm running for the U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
All right, so obviously his website is chambersforlouisiana.com.
Yeah, that's
if you want
great.
to go donate and
Yeah, that's great.
that's great. That is great too. He's not pulling punches. You can say that about him.
Well, you never know. Like a guy like that, like being so out front and outrageous like that. Some white Southerners would say he's so fucking crazy, I'll vote for him. Shit. But anyway, all right. So you guys, I guess you should sign the show off.
All right, go, Ken. You're muted, so unmute and do it.
I have to
You're
mute
muted,
myself
Ken.
every once in a while. I can't, I know you guys have trouble putting up with me, but so do I. Don't forget, I'm with myself 99% of the time. Okay, so I'll bring this show to a close now. I want to thank, you've been watching, hopefully, Going Viral, the February 9th show. And the panelists have been Dennis Goldstein, New Jersey, Ken Aaron, Los Angeles, Alex Stavropoulos, and I never thought I could pronounce his name even that close, who's in New York, Mike Jankowitz, who's in Queens, and Jim Dingeman, who's in Manhattan, or the Bronx. Manhattan, I think. Whatever.
The Bronx.
The Bronx, okay. So that's all. Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are. That's it. Stay tuned for our ending, and we'll see you next week.